Hi, everyone. My name is Max Young. I am the CEO of Capital BPM. I am here with Jeremy Warren. Jeremy, would you please be kind enough to introduce yourself?
Next, I'm Jeremy Warren. I'm the Vice President of Programming and Project Management at Greylock Federal Credit Union. For a relatively small credit union, we're unique that we have a fairly large development shop. So my team is responsible for all custom code development within the organization, and we build mainly applications to support the fiserv DNA ecosystem.
Very cool. So you guys are longtime Camunda customers. Why did you initially choose Camunda, and why did you choose Camunda 8 when you transitioned?
So I've been a fan of the BPMN concept back to the JBoss days. And so when I got here at Greylock, internally in my development team, we needed some workflow optimization. So Camunda quickly bubbled up as one of the leaders in this space, and that was in the Camunda 7 days. And we were basically using it internally with my team in a proof of concept, kind of quiet pilot type of thing. The business had a really urgent need for some workflows, and I said, "Hey, if you guys trust me, this Camunda thing is great. It's going to really solve that problem." They took a chance on it, and it was enormously successful, and then it just snowballed from there. The move to Camunda 8 became, we had that transition with this enormously successful pilot right when 7 and 8 were transitioning. And it was so popular. I had literally hundreds of requests for workflows. I was like,
Nice.
well, I don't want to redo hundreds of workflows from 7 to 8. Let's get up to 8 as fast as we can and build it all in 8, which was a great decision, and we're really happy with that.
And as I recall, you had like a really fantastic partner that helped you with that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we had built at that point, several mission critical Camunda 7 workflows, right? That we proved the concept to the business with Camunda 7.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, this is great, but Camunda 8 is pretty different. And these are now mission critical, used every day, hundreds of workflow executions per day. We need to get over to 8 quickly. And so we came across you and your team, and I was like, so yeah, we need to do this. We need to do it fast, and it needs to be reliable. And I think the target was 30 days I gave you, and you guys beat that by about a week. So that was phenomenal.
Yeah, you guys you were so easy to work with. You had thought so far ahead. Like you were using essentially job workers before they were even a thing. So you guys made it very easy to partner with you. What new capabilities and capacities in Camunda 8? 8.9 was just released. What are you most excited about?
There's really two that I'm super stoked about. The first is execution listeners. We're just starting to roll some of those out for basically for auditing, right? So obviously being highly regulated, we have some pretty strict audit requirements. So this is just going to make it so much easier for us to be super consistent, super simple. Just add a couple of execution listeners to your tasks, and boom, you've got all the auditing you could ever wish or hope for. And the other is AI is really the future of all of these workflows. So we've got a couple of workflows that are in pilot right now that are going to be starting to use AI integration, and we're really looking to make sure that we're taking full advantage of that capability, especially the ability to switch AI providers really seamlessly and not necessarily have to completely restructure your whole workflow if Claude is cheaper this week than ChatGPT.
Yeah, we've got a couple of customers who are doing some really interesting things there. They're using decision tables to determine the complexity of the need of the AI engine, and they are then switching dynamically at runtime between what needs to be done. And then we have others who are actually using sidecar AIs that'll tokenize the actual payloads that are going to the AI, and some are achieving like 95% token reduction in order to, they'll put that into like a temporary vector keeping database, and then they'll push that over to AI. So I find it really sort of interesting. Are you taking advantage of the agentic orchestration capabilities, or are you still looking at it from like a step perspective?
Yeah, we're working into it. Right. So the one workflow in particular that I'm excited about is for our address hygiene.
Hmm.
So we're going to use some AI capabilities. We have some fairly complex agent rules that go outside the normal USPS API calls, and so we've been experimenting with that. We now have an AI that is returning better than 99% of the human
Nice.
in terms of reliability, which is great. And what we're going to do is we're going to work into it. So we're going to be going live with 100% human in the loop initially.
Yeah.
AI is scoring all of its stuff, but that Camunda workflow then gets assigned to the human to basically validate and say a yes or no, which is feeding back into our training cycle to make sure that our prompts are right and everything. And then it's also self-scoring. So the vision is we're going to then put a decision table in there and then route it to an agentic to actually make the corrections in the system once we're comfortable with the scoring and just let the decision agent route it to an agent to actually make the changes. So a few more
Yeah.
weeks.
I love the speed with which Greylock delivers. You guys, you do not hesitate. Like when you see something, you're right there. And I also love the insight of using a combination of traditional expert systems like DMN tables in conjunction with the AI stuff, so that you're sort of getting the best of both worlds.
That to me, that was the biggest epiphany I had about these AI things is
Yeah.
that there's a lot of this work that is still deterministic,
Yeah.
right? And so, use the AI where it's not and don't spend your tokens. I had so much trouble getting an AI to figure out that Vermont was a state consistently,
Right.
right? And I was like, well, why am I even doing that? That's just a simple look up to a table, leave that deterministic, and let the AI just focus on the hard parts. And that has worked so much better.
I
And
love
then
that.
having Camunda be able to route it accordingly. This
Mhm.
one's hard, send it to the AI. This one's not, just do the normal stuff.
You touched on this briefly a minute ago, but I'd like to double click on it. How are you ensuring that AI decisions stay controlled and auditable?
Well, and again, that's where I'm super excited to be playing more and more with these execution listeners. To me, that just is the perfect combination of you have your AI task, you have your execution listener, you can now capture on the input and the output all the metadata that you need to ensure that that's tracked and logged and audited, and you could send it to for human review. You could, there's you now have this. That's one of the hardest parts of trying to figure out where am I going to put all this monitoring in my processes. And Camunda's just like, oh no, you got this execution listener, problem
Yeah.
solved. And I'm super excited about that. And again, we're just doing it right now for basic auditing, but
Yeah.
that's really high on our priority list is to start really experimenting with what can I capture out of the AI call,
Yeah.
store it, send it, route it, trigger events, all sorts of fun things. I have visions of workflows that trigger from events that occurred from execution listener logs. So, we'll see what happens.
No, no, you're absolutely right on. We have customers now that, as a part of their best practice, thou art not allowed to have activities that don't have execution listeners, even if it's a
Yeah,
no-op, because in the future you could always just come and retrofit a listener for that, which I think is
exactly.
fantastic.
Yeah, we have at a minimum start and end is the absolute bare minimum, and we're going to
Yeah,
be adding a whole suite of tools. AI will have its own little toolbox of listeners as well.
that's very cool. Final question for you. Do you have measurable improvements that you've seen from either using Camunda or the AI features? And what's sort of next on your horizon? We're all in this space. We're sort of stalking the answer, right? We sneak up a little bit, we hunker down, we get a lay of the land, and we sneak up. What are some measurable things that you're like, this is better, this is easier, and it sets me up for this other ambitious thing that I want to do?
Yeah. So 2.5 years ago, the organization set out a challenge to lower our efficiency ratio, and those in the credit union space know that that number is a really important metric. And we wanted to lower it by 7% in 3 years. And with the use of Camunda and our workflow processes that we implemented over 100 of them in less than a year, we met that goal almost a year ahead of schedule. And to be blunt, because we had so many to create, we barely scratched the surface of those workflows. It was just simply getting them into the system, even if it's not even, we made no optimization to the process itself. It was just getting it into the system and tracked and monitored and being able to record it and look at it and operate and look at it in the performance metrics, all of those tools available to us. We were able to find problems that we didn't even know we had just before we even tried to optimize the workflows. So the excitement here is that we're just going to take that to 11, right? So, okay, great. Now we're going to take our top 20 workflows in terms of time, in terms of member impact, whatever it might be, whatever the criteria are, and we're just going to go deep dive into them. And where can we put automation? Where can we put agentic processes? Where can we put decisions, AI-driven decision making, stuff like that? So, that's the next 3 years are going to be super exciting as we start just really diving deep into those, and we're confident we're going to be able to drive that efficiency ratio even further down.
I love that. And I love the fact that, one of the first things that you said off the top of your head was member impact, because, we're all here to help our customers. And the fact that that's just intuitively top of mind for you, I think that just says so much about Greylock and your philosophy and the approach that you have. I love that. Is there anything else that you would, if you could go back in time and tell Jeremy of 5-6 years ago or however long, what advice would you give him? Is there anything else that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I would have told him to go even faster. It was new to the organization, and so we're pretty conservative, and so it took a lot of time to, get people to get the concept, right? The concept is not necessarily 100% intuitive to everybody, and I spent a lot of time talking to the senior team and getting them to understand what this means. And because once the light bulb goes on and people get the concept, it makes so much sense to everybody.
Nice.
So I would have been more aggressive in trying to make sure people got it sooner, right? So we would have had even more success even faster.
Fantastic. Jeremy, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I'm really grateful for this. I love talking to people like you who have leadership roles but are also deeply technical. I think that you're literally on the cutting edge of what's possible and what's practical. So your time is really valuable. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much, Jeremy.
Thanks very much, Max. My pleasure.